Good day everyone. My name is Dorothy Relin Francia and I'm going to discuss about the water resource planning and management of legal and regulatory issues and economic feasibility. Objective. So the first one is to know the levels of planning. The second is to know the positive and negative impacts of environmental aspects in water resource planning. And the third one is to know what is legal and regulatory issues, water resources, and planning management and economic feasibility. So let us first discuss what is water resource planning and management. So water resource management, it can be defined as the implementation of best practices for effective quantitative and qualitative planning, development, distribution, and utilization of water. So water resource management is very important to us and for the future generations because it finds paths of development that will effectively balance progress with awareness of its environmental impacts. And without water resource management, it may lead to increase in poverty and decline of the environment. So the next is the water resource planning. So is a specialized discipline of planning that deals with planning for and managing natural and man-made systems that are typically contained with watersheds and which include hydrologic, biological, economic, and political system. So effective water planning is essential to ensure the long-term balance between supply and demand is maintained. So there are five levels of planning. So the first one is the local level, second is the regional level, the third is the state level, the fourth is the national level, and the fifth is the international level. So local level is para ni siya sa mga um plano for small village or small na mga area. And also diri na level is nagaplano of watershed development and also nagaconstruct of village tanks and dams. Also, in this level, there is also rainwater harvesting technique. So the second is the regional level. So the regional level is the opposite of the local level, which is para siya sa mga larger na areas and with several villages. And also, here is nag-construct of irrigation. The next is the state level. So this is where when regional level planning covers several districts of the state. Then the fourth is national level. So national levels is ang ginabuhat diri is nagaplano og kanang major na river basins. Then the last is the international level. So here is river running across neighboring nations planning needs at international level. So next is the environmental aspects in water resource planning. So we have the negative impacts and the positive impacts. So in the negative impacts, we have the damage to fish and also the wildlife, and due to the extinction of species of flora and fauna, change in ecology, and then the loss of forest lands, damage to vegetation on river banks, loss of agricultural land, displacement and rehabilitation of people, and many more. And also, sa negative impact is nagakause po siya of waterborne diseases. And then in the positive impact, so land use improvement by irrigation, then na ay flood protection, then naga-improve siya of water supplies for domestic and municipal uses. Then power supplies without consumption of fuel. Then naga-improve siya sa water quality, sa fishery, and also sa health. And also, in the positive impacts is nag-improve siya sa climate of a surrounding area. Then next is the water resource planning management of legal and regulatory issues. The first is the water rights. So if one's experience with water use is in a water scarce coastal city, one might assume that it is desirable for water to be treated and reused before it is released to the ocean. However, in an inland environment, water reuse may affect downstream users of the effluent. Thus, the right to use wastewater needs to be examined. So there are two distinct systems in the US that the law of water rights may. First, one is the water use under prior appropriation. So in accordance with each state legal structure, treatment facilities planning to reuse water must consider the effect of downstream users. And the second is the water reuse under the riparian doctrine. So the doctrine has evolved with changing circumstances, and modern practices involves administrative requirements and the ability to transfer water rights. So generally, the wastewater operator would be able to reuse wastewater unless it would likely cause harm to downstream riparian rights holders. So that are the two distinct systems of water rights. Next is the rights to aquifer storage. So here is the ability to utilize wastewater for use is controlled by state water law. So as water becomes scarcer, states will need to address the differing interest in wastewater. The next is the federal water quality regulatory. So we have four water quality regulatory. So the first one is the Clean Water Act and wastewater discharge, the federal regulation for injection or infiltration of reclaimed water in the Safe Drinking Water Act and the EPA guidelines for water use. So here's the Clean Water Act and wastewater discharge. So this act is developed to protect the health of the nation's surface water with the states or even in the tribes and given authority to determine the uses of the protected. And the second is the federal regulation for injection or infiltration of reclaimed water. So here is numerous water use projects use subsurface injection or infiltration as part of the wastewater treatment and storage process. And the third is the Safe Drinking Water Act. So here is drinking water treatment plants are required to meet whether they use pristine water supply sources, supply water from potable reuse projects, or practice de facto reuse. Then the fourth one is the EPA guidelines for water use. So EPA guidelines for water use or the EPA 2004 is which cover both potable and non-potable reuse. So are intended to provide reasonable guidance with supporting information for utilities and regulatory agencies. So next is the economic feasibility. So what is economic feasibility? So it is a kind of cost-benefit analysis of the examined project which assesses whether it is possible to implement it. So generally it means whether a business or a project is feasible cost-wise and logistically. So the primary goal in economic analysis are the benefit derived as a result of the project and the cost of implementing the project. Then the next is the perspective. So utility. So in the utility, benefits and costs from this perspective reflect the direct impacts on the utility without any regard to others. Then next is the ratepayer. So this perspective includes tanan mga cost and benefits carried to those who pay the rates for the utility. Then the third one is the society. So ang cost and benefits here must include in the utility and ratepayers' perspective are generally also included in this perspective. Then perspective choice. So the choice of the perspective is to analyze a project and determine which costs and benefits are appropriate. The next is the cost. So we have two types of cost, the internal cost and the external cost. So in the internal cost, we have five. So the first one is the capital cost, subsidies and grants, debt financing, operations and maintenance costs. So in capital cost, it this consists of all the expenditures necessary to create a productive asset. So this is another it is also referred as a lumpy expenditure. The next is the subsidies and grants. So grants and subsidies from other entities, particularly other government entities, used to reduce the internal cost of the project. The next is the debt financing. So is the interest and associated costs that must be added to the overall um, lifetime project cost. Then next is the operation and maintenance cost. So here is cost represents the ongoing expenditures necessary for the utility to operate the project over time, including keeping the facilities in good repair and then continuous over lifetime of the project, and depending on the level of production from the project. The next is external cost. We have two, the imposed cost and the environmental cost. So imposed cost is costs that are imposed by a production process on other entity that has neither consented to the imposition of the cost nor directly benefits from the production process. While ang environmental cost is cost that is not necessarily determined or valued because valuation of the loss of habitat or of an endangered species is nearly impossible. So next is the benefits. So we also have two types of benefits. So the internal and the external benefits. So the internal benefits, so we have the value of production. So the most direct measure of benefits for water resource is this one, the value of production or the value of additional water sales generated as a result. Then the avoided cost. Then so here is indirect benefit of a project coming about as a result of not having to use resources in some other way. And then in the external benefits, so it is imposed on outside entities, including the environment that can provide positive impacts. So that's all. Thank you for listening and stay safe, everyone. Bye.